Susan Hutson is not only the first female sheriff of Orleans Parish, she's also the state's first black woman to occupy the sheriff's office in the state, period. Full stop. No others. Voters elected Hutson on Saturday. She beat the incumbent sheriff who had been in office 17 years. Hutson is a former independent police monitor and progressive first-time candidate. Her primary responsibility as the Orleans Parish sheriff is to preside over the region's jail. PNC's legal contributor Paul Henderson is back to discuss this historic win. And Paul, you know Susan, you two are good friends. I heard she wanted to be here with us this evening, but of course she had some other issues that came up. So excited that you can be here to tell us about this win. I know, she's you also wear many hats. One of them serving as director of the Department of Police Accountability in San Francisco. So with your experience, why is this win so important for Louisiana?
It is huge, and it's huge for her too. She's such a good professional. This is going to be so good and groundbreaking for both reforms and accountability in that city, and hopefully will lead the way. We're actually here together for a conference with NACOL, which is the National Organization for Civilian Oversight Agencies, talking about both her win and what her agenda is for the future. But this is substantive, and one of the things that we have to talk about and unpack is, as we've been talking about in the past, police reforms and accountability that expands into other areas of law enforcement, and sheriffs is a really crucial component of it. So addressing reforms that need to take place for folks that are incarcerated is a mandate that is equally as important as the police reforms that most people are familiar with that takes place in these cities as well. So I couldn't be more excited for her leadership. I couldn't be more excited about her vision and the things that she's planning to do in New Orleans that she's campaigned on, that obviously the city felt was time to enact and make the change that I think is really necessary, not just for New Orleans, but in some other areas of the country as well, specifically when we're talking about our jails and prisons.
Yeah, this is huge. And Paul, I know you are friends, as we said. So, I know you might whisper in her ear a couple of pieces of advice. What do you think should be first on her agenda when she takes office?
Well, there's no need to guess as to what those agendas will be. She's talked about them. And yes, I have known her for a long time. She was the independent monitor for 10 years, and I've been doing oversight at my agency for 5 now. So we've talked about many of these issues. What she's indicated in some of the campaign trail that she ran on for her stage was, one, addressing she's against the prison expansion. And so that was an idea that had been contemplated and talked about for a while. And she was absolutely opposed to it and wanted to take a firm stance, not just as a local level, but as part of the mass incarceration, to end the proliferation and the investment in prison and jail custody to try and find new solutions. The other thing that I think she's talked about is focusing on expanding, addressing, and building out gender conforming housing, which is best practices. It's sad that we're still talking about issues like this as a progressive agenda, but it seems to be overtaking where prisons and jails are headed. And I think it needs to be the majority, but we'll see a new model initiated in New Orleans. And then the other thing that I think that she's talked about that has been at the forefront of her priorities is addressing health care for inmates and changing the contract, the local contract that the prisons and jails have had in New Orleans. And I think that's going to be really important. And there has been a track record that has been controversial, and she wants to look at it and open up and find a new contract to address getting better services for folks that are incarcerated. I think it's a really important conversation, and I'm really proud of her leadership here. I'm also really proud of the network for having a conversation like this to actually drill down and have conversations about the folks that are incarcerated. Because some of the interesting things when we're talking about incarcerated populations are, these are folks that don't have the same constitutional protections that you and I have because they are in incarcerated settings. And the more that we understand about what those experiences are like, the better accountable we can hold those agencies and institutions. We can't fix what we don't talk about, and we can't talk about what we don't know. So conversations like this, leaderships like this, is going to change things, I believe, for the better. And I'm actually excited about her leadership there.
Yeah, I think we all are. I mean, she's got a tall order to fill, Paul. I mean, she certainly is going to be watched throughout the country, I would imagine, every step of the way.
And challenged. I think a lot of folks may not like this kind of change. But when we talk about improving this country specifically to address our disenfranchised folks, it doesn't get much more disenfranchised than folks who are incarcerated. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't have to be accountable for what put them in those situations, but there is a humane element that has to be addressed in terms of what the expectations are for people that are incarcerated. And I think having representation at that table that looks like a Black woman is what I'm here for. I think we need to celebrate and have more folks from disenfranchised communities at the table, redefining a definition of public safety that I think is going to be better for this country. And certainly it's what the voters decided that they wanted in New Orleans, which I'm ultimately familiar with. You know, I went to law school at Tulane, so I know the city, I know Susan, I know her leadership. I'm excited about the potential of it, and I'm looking forward to the ongoing conversations to see what that looks like.
Oh, well, that's awesome. Please give her our regards, our congratulations, and you can come back with her as soon as she gets a chance. She's got a busy schedule with her new win. Thank you so much. As always, veteran prosecutor and BNC legal contributor Paul Henderson. Take care.